this is Henny Espinosa with Just Wish Foundation. I am so happy that we are joined today by a very inspiring young woman. She just graduated from one of the most prestigious universities in the world, of course, Harvard University. But what's remarkable about her is her drive and determination to succeed no matter the odds. So joining us now is Maria De Leon from Boston.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Maria. So, talk to us your childhood in the Philippines. You were born and raised there for the early years of your life. Tell us what that's like for you.
Yeah, I was born in Manila and I moved to Chicago when I was 6. So a lot of my memories from the Philippines are very blurry. I don't really remember a lot. I do remember just always playing in like playgrounds with my cousins because everyone just like lived near each other. So that was always fun. But then, yeah, my mom, my sister, and my brother and I moved to Chicago to kind of further our education because, you know, my grandma, who passed away, actually believed that our education would be more successful here in the U.S. than in the Philippines. But my dad did stay behind, so it was just my mom who was really taking care of us for the first few years. And we were in Chicago and just working any and every job available, you know, because as a single mom raising 3 kids who, you know, we didn't really know the language, didn't really know the culture. We were kind of just thrown into everything and just hoped for the best. And when we first moved to Chicago, we actually lived with other family members in a 1-bedroom apartment. So there were about 10 people in 1 bedroom. And so, yeah, it was just us trying to navigate all of that while also, you know, my mom working for food for us to eat, school fees and whatnot. So that was just the early childhood memories.
So let's talk about that your mom's, determination and hard work to support 3 children. You're the youngest of 3, right?
Yes.
What kind of jobs did she get? And, how many hours would you say she worked in a day, in a week?
She'd definitely be working more than 12 hours a day because she, I multiple times had multiple jobs at once as like a waitress, or she used to work at a hot dog stand, you know, just frying up some hot dogs and some cheese curds or something like that. And I distinctly remembered her coming back home super late and just smelling like grease, and like my siblings and I would help her count the tips that she would get as a waitress. And, you know, I saw that growing up, but when I was younger, it was like, oh, why can't my mom come to my assemblies, or why can't she chaperone some of these field trips that that my classmates' moms are doing? And then it was only when I got older, really, that I understood like everything she did for us. And you know, she would often miss like bedtimes, and my older brother would sometimes have to make something for us to eat. And the restaurant she actually worked in was next door to the laundromat that she would do her laundry. So during work hours, on her break, she would go get her laundry, do her laundry, and then her other break, she would bring it back to the apartment, and then we have to like fold the laundry. So, you know, we just made do with what we were given. And she never complained is the one thing I remember too. She was just always happy to, you know, buy us little treats here and there whenever, you know, tips and wages allowed. But otherwise, my mom has always been working till now. Actually, she's just always been working.
Let's take us back to when I think you were 10 years old, right? When this really shocking and I'm assuming traumatizing event happened in your life and your mom's life. Take us back to that moment that really shook your family to the core.
Yeah, so we've always known that we weren't living in the safest neighborhood in Chicago. You know, especially like after school, I always had to have someone pick me up or anything like that. I wasn't allowed to walk home by myself. When it's dark, we just had to be very, very careful because it's inevitable. Like we didn't really have a car or anything like that, so we would have to walk places. We would borrow my grandfather's car when occasion called for it. So we were all asleep. The kids were asleep by then. Pretty much everyone was asleep by then because this was one of the evenings that my mom was working super late at the restaurant. And it was nothing new to us. It was just a regular night, you know, sleeping in our bunk beds. And then I just suddenly heard a lot of loud noises. So I shot out of bed and was just really confused. And my sister, who was sleeping in the same room with me at the same time, was also very confused. We just got up, so we had no idea what was going on. But my brother rushed into the room and just like demanded clothes for my mom. And I was like, oh, like in my 10-year-old head, I was like, oh, mama's home. But like, why isn't she? Because we sleep on the same bed, me and my mom. And so I was like, why isn't she coming into our room yet? Like, what was happening? And then we were just hearing way more voices than normal, especially at that time of night, especially for how many people living in our apartment. And these were voices I never like heard before. And then suddenly I see like a police officer with my brother. And I just distinctly remember thinking like, why they didn't take their shoes off? Oh no, like they should be taking their shoes off right now, because I had no idea what's going on. But I was told to stay in the room the whole time. And my sister brought out the clothes for my mom, and I still didn't think anything was really wrong. I just thought like, I don't know what's happening, just very confused. Then my sister came back and she was crying a lot. And I think that's the first time I've ever seen or heard my sister cry as much as she did like ever in our short life at that point. You know, I was 10. And my brother and everyone was just like, go back to sleep, and weren't really telling us anything. I mean, granted, we were young, so I don't think they knew exactly how to explain what just happened to us or what just happened to our mom. And so they just told us to sleep. And I mean, we tried, but my sister was still crying. She wanted a nightlight, you know, all these things. And I was just like, I don't remember falling asleep, but I did. But I do remember not seeing my mom for a couple days because we weren't allowed to visit her in the hospital or anything like that. And so when I did see her, she was finally coming home. My uncles were helping her like get up the stairs again. And I remember seeing her for the first time after her attack. And I was just very scared. She actually didn't sleep in our room for a couple of days. She slept where my brother was sleeping in his room to recover. But I just was really scared of her, you know, because her face was it was like swollen, it was bruised, there were stitches.
So she was attacked on her way home from work by an unidentified assailant. Did she know her attacker?
No, apparently it was a drunk man. And the walk from the restaurant where she worked to our house was 10 minutes or less, very close. And she's walked that same route. I've walked that same route multiple times by that point. And apparently my brother heard her screaming from outside because his room was closer to the gate, and like our gate actually was broken. So she made it into our like apartment complex, but so did the guy because our gate was broken. So, you know, she fought him off. Luckily, nothing more happened than, you know, her getting beat up by the guy essentially. And yeah, that was just that night. And then a couple of weeks later, when she was like recovered, swelling went down, stitches dissolved, all that, she went to work. Same job, same hours, same route back home. And you know, life just went on. Just went on.
I was reading an essay that you wrote. I think this was your entry essay to Harvard, right? And clearly that left a mark in you as a kid, and pushed you to really strive to be successful someday, not only for yourself but for your mom. At what point did you realize and you use that dark moment in your life as a family to fuel your desire to be successful?
I think it was when my mom was recovering, right? She was just in bed the whole time and, you know, was in pain. And that was the first time I've ever seen something like that. And it's the first time I've ever seen my mom, like, not just like smiling every time she sees us or just like happy to go to work or stuff like that. So that was really when I told myself that I was not going to be a burden in any way to my mom. So I was like, I can get good grades, and I enjoyed school. And so it wasn't that hard of a decision to like, oh, I'm not going to just fool around. You know, I know at that point, I also knew that the reason why we were in a different country in the first place was for education. So I wasn't about to screw that up by, prioritizing hanging out with friends than doing, my studies. And it was also then when I realized, I could make things easier for my mom. I'll sign up for after school activities myself. So she'll have more time to like come pick me up later or have my siblings pick me up later if I keep myself occupied. I joined a lot of like summer programs, so she doesn't have to worry about where I'm gonna go in the summer. And like it seems a little sad because like, oh, this little girl is growing up a little too fast, but I think it really set a good example of like what discipline is, and I think it set me up for success later on too, like when I got into high school or in college, when like a lot of my peers are not like me or don't have a lot of similar background as me, but I still like learned to keep my head in order and keep my priorities straight and just always have my goal in mind.
Tell us what it was like, what high school was like for you, and how you prepared yourself into getting into Harvard. Not everyone gets into Harvard, and not everyone gets a scholarship. Was it full scholarship at Harvard?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so amazing, Maria. How did you prepare for that, and how did you bag that?
I think a lot of it is thinking that there's no harm in trying. No one ever applies to Harvard thinking they're gonna get in. I was lucky enough that the high school I went to was the same high school my brother and sister went to, so I was very familiar with the layout. And because in like elementary school I joined a lot of clubs and activities, I wanted to continue that in high school, which is great for application, when you're just doing a lot of activities. And I really did enjoy everything I did. And I think because of that, I was very confident in like, why not try it? What's the harm? The least, like the worst that can happen is that I get rejected, and I frame my rejection letter, and at least I got something from Harvard. And I think that was like the mindset I really went into it. I didn't think of it, I didn't want to say like it was my dream school and I worked every day just to reach that. No, because honestly it wasn't. I wanted to go to college. So I applied to a lot of schools. Harvard just happened to be one of them. And I was lucky enough to get in. And I worked at the admissions office while I was in undergrad, actually. So I got to talk to a lot of the admissions officers about like what they're looking for in students and all that. And, they say it's like, there's no mold for like the perfect Harvard student. It's always just like someone who has a story, who's passionate about something. Obviously academics, because it is a college, so you have to be prepared for the rigorous academics of it all, but also someone who's like an actual genuine person. They could admit 4.0 students, like, yeah, but then what are they going to get at the end of it? A student body who's just not really going to contribute to society. So
yeah,
I think just being genuine in your story and having passion and having the scores and grades helped me. And I think it's just like trying even though you're scared. Don't let anything like fear hold you back, kind of thing. And my mom did say too that the only way that she's gonna let me go out of state is if I get into Harvard, and she thought I was kidding, but I actually
You're like, well, Mom, guess what?
I have to go now.
Well, let's talk about that big move from Chicago to Boston. Was that tough for you? I mean, of course that entails money, but you got a full scholarship. Did the family have to sacrifice more to set you up in Boston?
I am actually really lucky that Harvard like knew of the struggles that families face when they're sending their student across the country, essentially. So they had a bunch of grants ready for first year students. So there wasn't really a lot of things that I had to financially think about in my family too, which is great because we didn't have savings or anything like that. We didn't have a college fund. So I was lucky in that regard that I didn't have to think about anything like that. I did have to think about like, I'm going to be in a state that none of my family members are in. It'll be the first time that's ever happened. First time I'm ever far away from family members for an extended period of time. And no one in my high school before had gone to Harvard, so I couldn't really reach out to anyone and ask them like, hey, what's it like? What should I expect? What do I bring? What should I leave behind? Like, what should I worry about when I get there? So I really was kind of going into it blind. You know, I had the support of my family members and whatnot, but at the end of the day, they left, right? Like after dropping me off, they had to go back and like work. And I was here like, okay, trying to navigate all this by myself. And it was really intimidating because, you know, the students that attend Harvard are, you know, some of them are like me, but a lot of them are not. So it's just finding my people and all that.
But let's talk about this degree that you finished and kind of what is the end goal for that. Like, where did you get that desire to be in the medical field, to be a doctor?
So my family has always just been ridden with a lot of medical complications. And I think that's pretty normal for a lot of immigrant families because, you know, doctors are pretty expensive. And whenever something goes wrong, we tend to just hope for the best and hope it goes away. But sometimes it doesn't. And so I have lost a few family members to like things like cancer, and a lot of family members have, you know, diabetes or hypertension and things like that. And so these words have always been in my life. And, you know, in high school, I took a lot of biology classes and chemistry classes, and I was really interested in figuring out what does and what can go wrong in the body because it was personal, right? Like my grandma died of leukemia, so I want to know what happened, like, and what is being done about it now. So it just felt natural that in college I kind of pursue that. And, you know, like people joke like, oh, you be a doctor or a lawyer. So it wasn't like I just chose one or the other. It was more of a natural transition from like, okay, I like sciences, so let's try out like being a pre-med student. And then the classes I took at college just kind of solidified that because a lot of my professors are also practicing physicians. And it was the first time in my life that I can talk to a doctor and not it be like I'm the patient or I'm the patient's granddaughter or the patient's niece or something like that, you know. So at this point I was a student learning from the doctor and the professor, so I was able to ask them all these questions, and they brought in their patients to talk to us. And I was really fascinated by that sort of like patient-physician relationship and just kind of the knowledge that a doctor has, but also the knowledge that they don't have, and that it's always a learning career. You always have to learn new things, and, you know, medicine changes, technology changes, so you just always have to be up to date with that. And I thought that was super exciting, so I just kept pursuing it.
And so your degree at Harvard is it molecular? It's a Bachelor of Arts in Molecular and Cellular Biology with honors, right?
The English honors. I wrote a thesis, that's why.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then what's next? I know you graduated 2020, right? But because of the pandemic, this is actually the year that you're marching. And how does it feel? What's going on in your head, Maria, that this is really the culmination of all your hard work, not just your hard work, but your family sacrifices, and your family's able to share that big moment with you, you know, when you march and you receive the diploma. How does that feel like?
Honestly, when we found out that we were essentially getting kicked out of campus March 2020 because of the pandemic, we didn't really believe that we weren't going to have a graduation. No, it was early in the pandemic stage. Everyone is like 2 weeks. You can come back 2 weeks. Obviously that didn't work out like that. And I honestly did lose hope about actually graduating, like on stage, getting handed my diploma. They mailed us our diploma already. So I was like, okay. And they had a virtual graduation for us where we, you know, sat in our living rooms and watched a YouTube stream of our speakers talking. And it was great, but it wasn't the experience I was looking forward to. And it wasn't the experience that my family was looking forward to, because everyone was super excited to come on campus and like take pictures and like see where my old stomping grounds were, you know, where I lived for 4 years essentially. And so for the 2 years since then, I've been working at Boston Children's Hospital doing immunology research, which is very, very relevant and very opportune timing because I was able to do COVID research. We actually are also doing opioid vaccine research to, tackle a different epidemic. So it's been fulfilling the past 2 years, but there was still something missing for sure because, like we never got that ending and that closure that a lot of people have. Like I never got to take a picture in my hat and gown with my family kind of thing. And I was really looking forward to that. So the fact that it's happening now, especially when I really didn't think it was going to happen at all, I'm like a little nervous, like having the whole family here, but I'm also very, very excited because it's like two worlds colliding. They'll meet some of my friends, some of my professors. I can tell them stories about like what I did when I was in that building and all those things. And that was what I was really looking forward to 2 years ago. So I'm glad that I'm able to do it this year.
Of course, the pride in their faces. I mean, I'm sure you feel that. I'm sure you see that. And that drives you even more to go further, right? Next stop is Boston University.
Yes. So I'm going to medical school in the fall. So I think I really like Boston because I'm just not leaving. So I will be a medical student at Boston University.
Great.
Very
Maria,
excited.
what is your message to other young people who may have had something traumatic happen in their lives, who may be struggling like many immigrant families? What is your message to them now that you're in a position to really tell young people to go after their dreams?
I would just say, don't let fear stop you from doing what you want. And don't let fear stop you from even exploring, even if you don't know what you want. A lot of the things I did, even in high school, or things I was just like, let's just try it. I tried like a journalism club and it was fascinating, but I didn't end up being a journalist. So really, like, even if something sparks a little bit of interest, go for it. The worst that can happen is like maybe you lose interest and you stop. I mean, I know life can be hard and a lot of things do involve maybe money or time or effort, and sometimes people just don't have that. But just don't give up. Things take time. I didn't go to medical school right after graduation because applying to medical school is very expensive, so I needed to come up with the money to even just apply. So yeah, just like there'll always be a way for you to follow your dreams and your passions. Just don't give up and don't let the passing of time wear you down.
Mm-hmm. Maria, we are so inspired by you. At Just Wish Foundation, of course, our founder, Mr. Jack Wu, really appreciates these kinds of stories of resilience and courage. And you're truly inspirational. We applaud you. We applaud your mom, your siblings, your family, your extended family, for really pushing you to be the best that you can be. And the world is within your reach. And so we would like to support you in your goal to become a doctor with some scholarship, like a little grant, if you will. And we just wish you the best of luck. And knowing that the drive and the determination inside you, we know that you will certainly go a long way.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for letting me tell my story as well.
Thank you.